Hello everyone. You might have seen on Twitter I've been posting up a few kind of bits of analysis and small snippets of information from the Trans-America bike race. What I thought I'd do is now we're 6 days into the race, having covered around 1,500 miles for the leaders out of 4,267 miles overall, is do a kind of screen grab YouTube video just going into a bit more detail, as you know, 140 characters isn't so much. So as you can see from here, not quite yet halfway. We've got one guy actually going westbound, so he's traveling from here to here. The convention is to go eastbound from here to here, as you normally get a better tailwind. Plus, you don't have to do such big hills at the end. Now, you might have seen I've been talking about different groups kind of emerging on the road. So at the start, everyone's together, and then as you know, people sleep a bit less, sleep a bit more, travel a bit faster, things spread out. And from here you can see it's really spread out. Now we've got a few people down at the back here. I did look up Jodie Ashley the other day. She's a lady, I think 65, and she'd had some problems with her rear derailleur, but she said she'd sorted them out and was continuing. As you can see, her last track was 8 hours and 42 minutes ago, so she is still traveling, hopefully. Now, if we come up to the front here, what we can see here is we've got Mike Hall's and Leo Wilcox's record of the fastest time set for the route. Now, this will travel along, and people will be able to follow that, and we can see if they're going to be able to break the record or not. Currently, Benjamin Colwill is ahead of Mike Hall's record, but you know, this keeps fluctuating going forwards and backwards depending on who's stopped to sleep when, who's stopped to eat when, things like that. And we know Mike Hall's record doesn't slow down, you know, he keeps going, he doesn't fade and things. So, you know, there is the chance of Benjamin, you know, having some issues or slowing down. Now, what we can do is if we use the replay bar over here, it's a little bit slow to load sometimes. What we can do is we can look at the last kind of 24 hours and see what's been going on as the riders have been moving. At the moment, as I record this, it's about midnight in America as they travel through the Yellowstone National Park, and some have stopped to sleep already, which is why we're seeing the slight disparity in where they are on the road. So we've got this going now. We can speed it up a little bit, and we can see here Benjamin Colwill is out in front. We've got John Lester and then Peter Anderson behind. This is very much the lead group here. As you can see from the mileage counters, they are quite a bit ahead of, say, Bo Dudley back here. Keeps splitting out in the afternoon as they are traveling faster, and then they've got you know, slightly better gradient. So we can see here as we approach 8 o'clock, what happens is Peter Anderson and John Lester stop to sleep earlier on in Lander, knowing this is possibly one of the last decent stops for a while, whereas Benjamin Colwill continues, and that's why we're seeing the bigger gap between them at the moment, as these guys have stopped to sleep earlier on, taking advantage of the you know, motels and things in Lander, as we can see here from when we zoom in on the map. You know, Holiday Inn, Holiday Lodge, so they're getting a good sleep. Whereas Benjamin Colwill has continued on, and you know, will possibly be having to bivvy or something else because of the lack of, you know, towns further down. Before we have a look a bit more in detail at their sleep patterns, we can go back to here. This is very much the second group on the road. You know, these people will be fighting it out for the you know, top 10 or the bottom half of the top 10, and then into the top 20 here. For example, Bo Dudley, the leader of that group, is on 1,355 miles. So it's, you know, sort of 250 miles, no, 150 miles behind, you know, the Benjamin Colwill and the other leaders. So 150 miles, okay, it doesn't seem like a great distance. Okay, to normal people, it's a long, long way. To, you know, ultra endurance guys, it's not a big distance. But the factor you need to counter in is the kind of gradients and mountains that they're passing at the moment. So it takes longer to cover this distance, firstly, because of that. And secondly, when you've got 6 days into this kind of race, you're more tired, you know, you're not traveling so fast, it's going to take longer to cover. So even if you're stopping less, sleeping less, distance does take longer to cover. So, you know, as the next few days emerge and these guys continue through the mountains, it's going to become an interesting race into the top 20. We've got a lot of people here. So it's going to be a good old fight going on for that. Now, one thing to note is Janie Hayes, kind of the first lady on the road at the moment, currently head of Lael Wilcox's record. That's been kind of going back and forth for the past few days as she battles that. Janie has done the race before, she's pretty experienced, she knows what she's doing, so this is going to be really, really good. I would imagine that, she has a schedule and she knows where the record is, and that's what she's trying to beat. And so we're going to see a good battle going on there as long as she can keep the momentum going forward. Now, one interesting thing to talk about is the sleep patterns of these, guys who are really, really pushing it at the front. If we go to Benjamin Conwell, who is leading the race at the moment, we can see when this loads up, if we scroll down, we can see his speed versus time plot. So here, this is 6 days worth, 140-ish hours, that, his sleep has been short and kind of maybe a little bit irregular. Obviously didn't take a break here, rode straight through the night, and you can see his speed suffers. He's traveling slower. He's obviously more tired and is going to suffer further backwards into the race. If we go a little bit further back onto the road, I'm going to pick out John Lester, because I think he is really, really doing a good race, and we could be seeing him winning, to be honest. If we look at his speed versus time plot, you can see every night consistent, 4 or 5 hours sleep, a little bit less here, that's what you need to see in a race that's this long. It's 4,270 miles. It's going to take, I think most records 14 days. So it's not as short as some of the other races. So you've really, really got to prioritize consistent sleep because you need to keep the body strong. You can see here his speed is, pretty good as well. That sleep is really, really going to help him as we get into the second half of the race. You might see some of these others who've been sleeping a bit less, suffering a bit more, slowing down, maybe picking up some injuries and things like that because they've really, really been pushing their bodies beyond too soon into the race. Whereas you might see John Lester, Peter Anderson is a good example as well. Both of these have been sleeping well, and so we're probably going to see them in better condition towards the second part of the race as they start to pull out some distance on the others. This gap between to the second group is only going to start to grow now as the front guys continue to push on, feeling strong and good. And, there is some slowing down in this group here. These have turned up to win. These guys might have turned up to win, but they're also, here not as strong physically, but just racing really hard. We've got Janie there. This next woman on the road, Amy Lipp, is here. There's not probably going to be a real battle between the women, but I think we are going to see a good battle with Janie and some of these others for a top 5 placing. Currently lying in 7th at the moment. We're going to see her really pushing for a top 5, I think, as she's got the experience and consistency to continue. It's going to be an interesting race as it develops. They've got to get through Yellowstone. These guys have got to get, through a national park here. Really, really mountainous, as we can see from here. And then they're going to descend down into the flats and make their way across Kansas. These straight, brutal roads, the winds, it's going to be really, really tough. There is a long way to go, and, it's going to be interesting. All right, any questions, just, reach me on Twitter and we can look at those and look a bit further. As the race develops, we can look a bit more at, the top 20, and then further back here, as the racing and the in-racing within the race starts to develop, this will get more interesting.